How does history define a humble pastor? What image is etched into our collective memory? The chroniclers of old wrote of quiet figures, humble, dedicated servants ministering to their small local flock, souls entirely detached from earthly material possessions, measuring their vast inheritance in spirit, never in dollars. Historically, we record lives of profound faith existences that stood completely apart from the relentless, money-driven hunger defining so much of our modern age. Now let you and I take that classic image, that ancient concept of a priest, and prepare to see it entirely shattered. Our modern chronicles reveal a world where ancient faith and massive fortune collide in spectacular fashion. We document a powerful group of clergy who have acquired such immense, staggering fortunes that it defies belief. Our files do not show mere comfortable, upper-class living. This is not about an upscale home or a single luxury sedan. We are tracking a level of treasure rivaling corporate giants, Hollywood legends, and ancient royalty. Our records register private jets, not just isolated aircraft, but massive, multi-million-dollar fleets. The annals show sprawling multi-million-dollar estates, colossal compounds, dwarfing many five-star luxury resorts. Our reports show designer wardrobes worth far more than the average citizen's vehicle, timepieces surpassing the price of modern homes, representing a standard of unapologetic luxury. These figures preach eternal salvation on holy days, yet spend their weekdays dwelling in material paradises most cannot imagine. Our historical audit now charts the 10 wealthiest spiritual leaders across the globe for 2025. This is a historical inquiry into megachurches, vast global broadcasting networks, and multi-billion-dollar empires built on sacred faith. As reporters, we must note that these financial statements are calculated estimates. We compiled these figures from tax registries, historical media, and financial audits. The true assets remain obscured beneath complex layers of shell companies and ministries. Thus, the true depth of their fortunes remains far greater, far more staggering than what our records conclude. Our chronological investigation begins by tracing the origins of each modern patriarch. We will analyze their colossal historic congregations, these vast spiritual institutions that secure tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars annually. We will dissect their vast business empires, ranging from best-selling literature to proprietary broadcasting networks. And inevitably, we must examine the deep moral conflicts that arise when immense wealth meets spiritual leadership. The supreme figure on our list will leave you and I utterly astounded. A sovereign whose sheer wealth places him in an unprecedented class of his own. We initiate this historic record with a figure whose name seems almost too fitting to believe, an identity seemingly destined from birth for a scroll of immense wealth, an ironic historical truth. Indeed. The chronicle begins with a leader named Dollar. Occupying rank number 10 is Creflo Dollar, possessing a recorded net worth estimated at $27 million. $27 million. Consider the historical weight of that figure, cementing him directly into the global financial elite, an empire erected upon one of the most polarizing theological theories in modern religious history, the prosperity gospel. This doctrine states that divine favor manifests not as mere grace, but as tangible gold and worldly wealth. Creflo Dollar did not merely preach this gospel. He rose to become one of its most celebrated and successful champions. Yet this tale of massive fortune did not begin in a corporate boardroom. It began in the most unlikely place. For Creflo Dollar was not born to preach. No ministry was handed to him. His journey was a masterclass in raw empire building. Picture the scene. The year was 1986. There were no television cameras, no best-selling books, nor any adoring crowds. Just one man, in a humble school cafeteria, delivering his first sermon to a tiny gathering of 8 people. That was the moment his multi-million-dollar empire began. Not inside a grand cathedral, but in a basic room surrounded by ordinary life. From those modest beginnings, he established a ministry that would soon become World Changers Church International. Soon expansion began, first gradually, then with explosive speed. The numbers rocketed from 8 original followers to 30,000 active members. Let us analyze that number. 30,000 souls do not just make a church, that is the population of a city. An entire legion of believers captivated by his powerful, magnetic sermons on personal wealth. How did he generate a $27 million fortune from those roots? Creflo Ministries grew into a massive financial powerhouse. Enormous revenue poured from various streams, starting with direct weekly offerings from his massive congregation. It had reached much further. As a prolific writer, his books shipped worldwide, spreading his doctrine to millions. He dominated global television networks. And then came the real estate ventures. Clearly, the organization was managing properties just as much as saving souls. However, his immense wealth sparked historic, heated controversy. This leader did not hide his great wealth. He openly showcased it. Records show he acquired 2 Rolls-Royces, the peak of luxury transportation. He secured multiple massive estates, towering as grand monuments to his financial success. But the most polarizing event, triggering a wave of international backlash, occurred in 2015, when his organization launched a massive public appeal, requesting millions to purchase a brand new Gulfstream G650 private aircraft. The total cost was a staggering $65 million. The public was absolutely outraged. Global media ran the story, and the question echoed everywhere. Why did a pastor require such an extravagantly expensive vehicle? Why need a private jet costing more than the gross domestic product of a nation? The organization argued that the aircraft was vital for global operations. Yet the fierce public condemnation remained relentless, even with growing scrutiny over his incredibly opulent lifestyle. Creflo retained an enormous following, proving the incredible durability of his theology and global personal brand. If that 10th spot was impressive, prepare yourself for our next historical figure. Occupying the 9th position is an icon who transcended the traditional pulpit. He became a massive media mogul, a best-selling author with millions of copies distributed, who eventually produced blockbuster feature films. Bishop T.D. Jakes evolved into a cultural phenomenon, commanding a staggering $50 million fortune, establishing a vast corporate empire extending far beyond the walls of any sanctuary. Frankly, that $50 million valuation is considered a highly conservative estimate. The archives suggest his vast business dealings mean the true figure remains immeasurable. Like so many historical giants, his chronicle begins in utter obscurity. The records show a modest storefront church housed his very first congregation. Yet his thunderous, commanding voice soon echoed far beyond those humble walls. His gift for capturing crowds and driving them to action was truly undeniable. The turning point came in 1996 with the founding of the Potter's House, a massive, non-denominational church in Dallas, Texas. This sanctuary became the absolute epicenter of his ministry. Today, 30,000 souls fill those pews, but the true broadcast reach spans far wider. His signature television broadcast, The Potter's Touch, reached far past American borders. It beamed into millions of homes, spreading his gospel across global networks. This cemented his image as a household name across entire continents. Yet the true cornerstone of T.D. Jakes' wealth stems from his unmatched triumphs in media. Here we observe his transition from preacher to media mogul. Authoring over 40 books, his documented sales reached astronomical heights. Our records show over 20 million copies sold. a truly staggering statistic. He solidified his status as a premier literary force of his era. His seminal work, Woman, Thou Art Loosed, transcended standard bestseller lists to become a true cultural phenomenon. Its massive impact eventually translated into a hit feature film. This cinematic breakthrough birthed his highly lucrative media enterprise. T.D. Jakes Entertainment went on to produce a lineup of films generating hundreds of millions at the box office. He effectively mastered the art of transforming deep devotion into a powerhouse brand. His personal lifestyle mirrored this grand prosperity. He acquired a sprawling 14,000-square-foot mansion inside an exclusive gated community near Dallas. This property was far more than a home. It was a monument. He constructed a formidable legacy, masterfully blending spiritual devotion with absolute corporate dominance. He stood as both a holy guide and an undisputed titan of commerce. He became a celebrated author, pastor, filmmaker, and absolute media giant, securing an enduring position among the most affluent spiritual leaders in history. Moving to number 8 on our chronicle, we analyze a spiritual leader who remains highly famous and deeply polarizing. He achieved global renown by filling massive sports stadiums for his legendary faith-healing events. This was the era of Benny Hinn. Our records estimate his net worth at $60 million, wealth forged entirely through a global ministry built on the powerful promise of divine miracles. His origins span continents, born in Jaffa, Israel, and brought up in the Eastern Orthodox faith. During his youth, his family migrated to Toronto, Canada, to find a new beginning. It was there that his destiny took a sharp, dramatic turn. He converted to Pentecostalism, claiming to experience a profound, life-altering spiritual awakening. He eventually relocated to the United States, establishing the Orlando Christian Center in 1983. His theatrical style and promised miracles attracted massive crowds, causing the congregation to expand rapidly. Yet his real rise to historical prominence lay ahead. Achieving global televangelist status with his iconic program, This Is Your Day, the show beamed into hundreds of nations worldwide. Served as the primary vehicle to broadcast his spectacular miracle crusades. These were no mere church services. They were massive, stadium-sized spectacles watched across the globe. Our records track this crusade across America, Africa, and Asia. On stage, Benny Hinn presented himself as God's chosen vessel for healing, promising sudden cures for blindness, cancer, and permanent paralysis. Historic footage of desperate crowds collapsing under his touch became the very trademark of his empire. These massive gatherings generated an absolute tidal wave of donor cash, bolstered by high book sales and endless appeals on his broadcast network, forming the bedrock of his immense $60 million fortune. It was a perfectly coordinated machinery of live spectacles, global broadcasts, and relentless demands for money. Yet historical accounts reveal his entire career was shadowed by controversy, acting as a lightning rod for severe backlash. Reporters and financial watchdogs continuously challenged his claims, finding zero medical evidence that desperate followers were ever cured of the severe illnesses he claimed to wash away. His lavish lifestyle quickly became a focal point of public outrage. Our files show a multi-million-dollar mansion by the ocean, his own private jet, and routine stays in the world's most expensive presidential suites. This supreme luxury, built directly on the donations of followers desperately seeking miracles, ultimately triggered a federal investigation by the United States Senate into the dark finances of Prosperity Gospel Ministries. Despite the massive scandal and decades of intense media scrutiny, Hinn stood tall as one of the most influential media preachers in history, an enduring figure whose illusion of miracles still attracts massive crowds and generates unbelievable wealth. Tracing our climb further, we uncover our number 7 leader, a figure of absolute power and reverence, celebrated not only in Nigeria, but revered across the entire globe. We point now to Pastor Enoch Adeboye, holding a vast fortune estimated at $65 million, reflecting his colossal spiritual influence. To his massive global flock, he is respectfully called Daddy G, the title meaning General Overseer. Under his watch, the redeemed Christian Church of God rose from obscurity, transforming this local Nigerian parish into a sprawling, multinational religious empire known worldwide as the RCCG. Now you might find this shocking, but his rise to the peak of African religious power did not begin inside any theological school. The records show he was a math professor. Holding a doctorate in applied mathematics, he spent his early career strictly dedicated to the cold world of science, logic, and numbers. But history took a turn in 1973, when he abandoned academia to join the RCCG. Climbing the ranks, he took total control. By 1981, succeeding the original founder and taking his place as the ultimate leader. Under his command, the organization exploded. The scale of his success remains truly historic. Through decades of meticulous planning and administrative genius, he scaled a modest Nigerian parish into a massive international phenomenon. Today, our mapping shows his church operating across 198 different nations, a global footprint larger than the membership of the World Health Organization. Thousands of branches span the globe, feeding a colossal network of power and wealth. So where did this massive $65 million fortune accumulated by a former math professor actually originate from? Records show the main source of this wealth stems from tithes and offerings of his millions of global followers. Yet the chronicles reveal deeper layers. He authored a massive daily devotional book known to history as Open Heavens, which moves millions of copies annually. Beyond this, his church evolved into a colossal commercial empire. We trace massive investments directly into real estate. The institution even acquired its own private university, Redeemer's University, alongside its dedicated broadcast channel, Dove Television, a perfect fusion of faith and commerce. Consequently, Pastor Adeboye's lifestyle reached legendary levels of luxury. Archival reports indicate he acquired a heavily armored Rolls-Royce Phantom, a machine valued at $500,000, even before custom defense plating. The records also show him traversing the globe in a Gulfstream G550 jet, reputed as one of the most elite long-range aircraft available, a staggering acquisition for any figure of spiritual guidance. As we break into the top 6, you and I can see the figures growing, truly staggering. Occupying the 6th rank is another highly influential force, Pastor Chris Oyakilome. While historians debate the exact sum of his wealth, its sheer scale is undeniable, with calculated records placing it in a vast spectrum stretching from $50 million to an incredible $125 million. He emerged as the magnetic architect of the global movement called Christ Embassy. Revered by millions as simply Pastor Chris, he laid his ministry's foundation in Lagos, Nigeria. From the very beginning, the movement targeted global reach, utilizing advanced media strategies and a mesmerizing message. Today, Christ Embassy stands as a global empire, with outposts spanning every major continent. He successfully constructed an incredibly complex media machine. This surpassed any standard weekly broadcast. He established his own network, Love World, projecting his voice 24/7 across multiple continents. His reach expanded further. Records show he even established a private music label, releasing sacred melodies to amplify his renown. Yet a primary pillar of his astounding wealth and global reach remains a legendary daily devotional text titled Rhapsody of Realities. This is no ordinary publication. It ranks among the most heavily circulated written works in human history. Documentary evidence shows translation into thousands of distinct dialects, representing a staggering feat of logistics. Each day, Millions of devoted readers study this text, forging an unbreakable bond with his ministry while securing a continuous, massive flood of capital. Consistent with our findings on other leaders, Pastor Chris is renowned for massive healing crusades. These spectacular gatherings fill colossal modern arenas, drawing millions of eager observers both physically and through global satellite broadcasts. These spectacles serve as the bedrock of his influence, displaying reported supernatural miracles while gathering legions of new converts and substantial financial tributes. But as we analyze his chronicle, we find it shadowed by immense controversy. He faced intense investigation across the decades, notably a massive money laundering trial in Nigeria that authorities ultimately dismissed. Scholars and critics heavily questioned his doctrines on spiritual recovery, especially concerning life-threatening diseases. Yet his legacy stands unshaken. Pastor Chris Oyakhilome remains a monumental titan in the history of global televangelism, a media-savvy leader who constructed a massive fortune and a global following of staggering proportions. Now let us examine our number 5 spot, where stands arguably the most famous pastor in American history, a man defined by his eternal smile, his uplifting message, and his colossal church. This is the smiling chronicler from Houston, Texas, the famous Joel Osteen. Amassing an empire valued at a staggering $100 million, he commands the single largest megachurch in the entire nation, Lakewood Church. Yet historical records reveal that for most of his life, he never intended to preach. For 17 long years, he worked in the shadows. His father, John Osteen, was the true architect and founder of Lakewood Church, while Joel quietly directed the television broadcasts that built his father's legacy. He was the technician behind the camera, managing the stage, ensuring every broadcast was flawless. Then came 1999, and tragedy struck when his father suddenly passed away. Unprepared and filled with deep hesitation, Joel reluctantly took over the pulpit. He abandoned the traditional doctrines of sin and damnation, pivoting his entire campaign toward absolute hope and divine favor. And the masses absolutely embraced it. His highly charismatic motivational tone resonated deeply with millions of seekers. Under his reign, the congregation grew at an explosive rate. By 2003, their growth demanded an unprecedented historical shift. They claimed a massive 17,000-seat sports arena, the historic former home of the Houston Rockets basketball team. Consider the scale of an empire that conquers a professional sports coliseum. Lakewood quickly became an absolute financial juggernaut. Fueled by a staggering annual budget of $90 million, funded entirely by its vast following. Now let us examine the anomaly that completely separates Joel from other modern leaders. Records show he has refused any salary from his church since 2005. How then did he build a fortress of $100 million? The answer lies in his highly lucrative career as a global author. His written chronicles have sold millions upon millions of copies across the globe. These literary works, like his speeches, echo with messages of endless positivity, cementing his status as one of the most successful authors of our era, generating a massive fortune completely independent from his religious empire. Yet such immense wealth and power inevitably invite severe historical scrutiny. He resides in a 17,000-square-foot palace, a prime target for his detractors. His greatest crisis came during Hurricane Harvey in 2017, facing heavy condemnation for failing to open his massive facility to shelter the desperate storm victims. Though the leadership claimed safety concerns, the reputational blow was devastating. Nonetheless, despite endless controversies surrounding his vast wealth and message, his standard of optimism still reaches millions of loyal followers every single week, solidifying his rank as a dominant force in modern history. We ascend now to number 4, documenting a true legend who dominated American media and politics for decades. We speak of the late Pat Robertson. At his passing in June of 2023, his estate held at least $100 million, an empire forged at the crossroads of faith media and political power. The historical record of Pat Robertson is wild. A legendary saga of American business and religious broadcasting. The history begins in 1960 with almost no capital when he acquired a dead television station in Virginia. From that tiny spark, he built the Christian Broadcasting Network. Just 1 year later, in 1961, his legendary flagship program, The 700 Club, launched on the airwaves. What began as a simple local telethon quickly evolved into one of the most enduring and highly influential Christian television broadcasts in global history. This broadcast catapulted him onto the international stage, establishing a massive global empire and netting him unbelievable wealth. Yet Robertson's historical ambition went far beyond media. Far from it. In 1977, he chartered Regent University, a private Christian institution destined to become a powerhouse of conservative education. He was more than a media titan and educator. He became a titan of political force. By 1988, he officially launched a historic campaign for President of the United States. Though his bid failed, he successfully mobilized a massive, passionate grassroots army of evangelical voters, forever cementing their status as a permanent, dominant force in American politics. Operating from his desk on the 700 Club, he wielded immense and highly controversial influence over national politics for the next 3 decades. He analyzed global events, interviewed heads of state, broadcasting his conservative Christian worldview directly to millions of devoted followers every single day. He mastered the art of blending theology, media, and politics into a highly lucrative combination. His legacy completely reshaped the history of both American media and national politics, securing his place as one of the richest and most powerful religious titans of the modern era. History remembers him for his immense power, massive wealth, and endless controversy. Now our investigation enters the top 3, where the scale of wealth becomes truly staggering, crossing into an entirely different financial dimension. Standing tall as Nigeria's wealthiest minister, and the 3rd richest on earth, we find Bishop David Oyedepo. Records document his staggering net worth at an estimated $200 million. He established and leads the massive Living Faith Church worldwide organization, widely recognized as Winners Chapel, which has grown into a global phenomenon. To truly grasp the historic scale of Oyedepo's absolute influence, one must analyze his colossal headquarters in Nigeria, a vast complex called Canaan Land. The crown jewel of this compound, the Faith Tabernacle, houses 50,000 seats. That is 50,000 seats. A structure larger than most professional sports arenas. It historically held the record as the single largest church auditorium on earth, proving the colossal reach of his religious operation. But where exactly does such a massive fortune actually originate? A major share is generated through the tithes and weekly offerings of his followers, flowing from an expansive international network of branches. Yet the bishop is far more than a spiritual leader. He is a shrewd entrepreneur, commanding a massive business empire. This lucrative empire includes his private press, Dominion Publishing House, which prints his extensive catalogue of highly successful books on faith and wealth. Records show his publications generated massive wealth, while broadcasting his controversial spiritual message. Yet history will note his most lucrative enterprise was actually in private education. He established 2 of Nigeria's most elite and expensive private universities, Covenant University and Landmark University. These schools boast strict academic standards, but they also turn massive profits, serving as a cornerstone of his massive wealth. He built a perfect cycle, where the church, the publishing house, and the universities fed each other. Now, as you and I would expect, his personal life matches that grand scale. Archives indicate he acquired a fleet of private jets. Not a single aircraft, but multiple planes to run his vast international operations. Reports also place his luxury estates across Nigeria, London, and the United States. He became a bold, loud champion of the prosperity gospel, preaching that strong faith directly unlocks massive financial wealth. Combining his magnetic sermons with an incredibly sharp mind for business, he rose as one of the most powerful and phenomenally wealthy spiritual figures on earth. But you and I must prepare for a fortune that defies belief. These figures are staggering, almost impossible to fully comprehend. Landing at number 2 is Kenneth Copeland. Official estimates place his worth at $300 million minimum, but other investigations suggest it climbs to an unbelievable $750 million. This puts him in a category of his own, a giant of broadcast preaching. The history of his early life reads like fiction. Long before the pulpit, Kenneth Copeland actually started out as a pop vocalist. Back in the 1950s, he scored a major hit titled Pledge of Love. He seemed destined for a completely different kind of celebrity spotlight. Everything changed when he converted to Christianity, leading him to work as a pilot for another legendary preacher, Oral Roberts, right before launching his own religious organization. In 1967, he and his wife Gloria established their ministry in Fort Worth, Texas. From day one, his message focused entirely on wealth, but he pushed it to absolute extremes. He built his platform on seed faith, the belief that donating cash to his church prompts the divine to return that money to you 100 times over. This promise proved highly effective, bringing in a massive flood of donations for decades. The headquarters of his operation is no simple building. It is a massive 1,500-acre estate in Texas. Take a look with me. A sprawling ranch featuring a church broadcast studios, massive warehouses, and even a private airport. Indeed, he constructed a runway right there to house his personal aircraft fleet, which once featured a multi-million-dollar Gulfstream 5 jet. This taste for private aviation became the most notorious scandal of his entire career. Public critics continuously blasted him for his opulent, high-flying lifestyle. During one legendary, heavily criticized broadcast, he justified his private jet by claiming commercial flights were just metal tubes filled with demons. He was dead serious. He insisted that communicating with God was impossible while sharing a cabin with ordinary travelers. The records show his massive fortune sparked immense public outrage, ultimately triggering a formal Senate investigation into the ministry's financial dealings. Yet the historical archives record his defiance, as he insisted this vast wealth was never his, but belonged to the heavens, calling it a divine reward for his absolute belief. This unyielding message cemented his legacy as a titan of faith and influence. Now, as investigators of this history, we have finally reached the summit. Our chronicled journey began at a mere $27 million, climbing steadily up to $750 million. Yet even that massive sum pales in comparison to the figure occupying the top spot on our historical ledger. The undisputed crown belongs to a Brazilian preacher who became a colossal media mogul, constructing an empire so vast and highly profitable that it defies standard economic logic. The chronicles name this titan as Edir Macedo, possessing a truly staggering net worth estimated at an unbelievable $1.9 billion. That is a billion with a B, elevating him far beyond ordinary millionaires. He stands alone, a billionaire clergyman in a league of his own. Our archives show humble beginnings, founding the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God inside a modest converted theater in Rio during the late 1970s. What began as a localized movement has transformed into a massive global behemoth. It now spans over 100 nations, commanding millions of loyal followers. Their core theology centers on the prosperity gospel, promising the faithful that their devotion and financial offerings will secure vast material rewards. These steady contributions from his global network generate an enormous, relentless stream of wealth flowing directly back to his headquarters in Brazil. Yet historical analysis reveals those tithes are not the main driver of his billion-dollar fortune. The real secret behind his top ranking is his role as a massive media magnate, founding the powerful conglomerate Grupo Record, which became one of Brazil's largest networks. The crown jewel here is Record TV, the country's second-largest station. Controlling this major national broadcaster grants him unprecedented, immense power over local politics and public opinion, while offering a perfect mainstream platform to broadcast his religious message directly to millions of citizens every single day, securing a highly effective feedback loop. As we analyze the records, his rise to billionaire status was marred by intense legal controversies. For decades, state prosecutors, both in Brazil and abroad, investigated his activities. Official indictments charged him with money laundering and utilizing his ministry to illegally siphon billions in donations, even leading to a brief prison stint of 11 days back in 1992, on charges of charlatanism, though those charges were dismissed. Still, historians note critics accuse him of exploiting impoverished communities for massive personal gain on a grand scale. Yet, despite decades of fierce legal battles and public backlash, Macedo expanded his reach by masterfully combining religious devotion with absolute media control. He secured a level of wealth entirely unprecedented in religious history. His legacy stands as a striking testament to how faith media and business can merge to forge an empire of truly unfathomable riches, sealing his status as undeniably the wealthiest religious leader in modern history. The chronicle is complete. We have chronicled a staggering ascent through faith and fortune, beginning with Creflo Dollar's disputed $27 million legacy, leading all the way to the absolute peak, a colossal $1.9 billion empire. Our chronicle shows how these 10 leaders, wielding the power of magnetic preaching, vast global ministries, highly successful books, and massive commercial empires, amassed historic fortunes, cementing their status among the wealthiest people alive today. This presents a critical historical question, and we must ask what you truly think. Should spiritual leaders amass such riches? Is this mountain of wealth truly a sign of divine favor, a righteous reward for absolute devotion and toil, as they claim, or does it stand as a direct betrayal of the foundational truths they preach? Can a billion-dollar empire ever align with the humble ancient scriptures they claim to represent? History offers no simple verdict, leaving believers deeply divided across this great debate. Share your perspective on this historical clash in the comments below. We examine every response, and your voice is vital to this ongoing record. If this historical breakdown has opened your eyes, support our record by leaving a like. To uncover more untold histories and deep investigations into modern power, join our chronicle by subscribing today. Ring that bell so you are always informed when our next investigation drops. Thank you for watching.